Hello everyone, it's day 32 and today I have 4th April 2024 Indian Express newspaper and as usual I have a explained page and there are few important articles over this page. There are exactly three important articles over this page and I didn't found any important article over the editorial page, although there was about a demographic dividend, but we'll see it some other day. But on the explained page there is an article regarding the glacial lake floods GLOF, which we study in the basic geography and static in the static part. So let us see what this article is about to say. So rising temperature have increased the risk of glacial lake burst of the kind that devastated the Kedarnath valley in 2013 and parts of Chamoli in 2021. Uttarakhand has commissioned a GLOF risk assessment study. So let us see what this article is about. The Uttarakhand government has constituted two teams of experts to evaluate the risk posed by five potentially hazardous lakes in the region. These lakes are prone to glacial lake outburst flow. So we will mark some important things as well. So glacial lake outburst flow, the kind of event that have resulted in several disasters in the Himalayan states in recent years. The goal of the risk assessment exercise is to minimize the possibility of a GLOF incident and provide more time for relief and evacuation in case of a breach. The National Disaster Management Authority (NDMA), which operates under the Union Ministry of Home Affairs, has identified 188 glacial lakes in the Himalayan states that can potentially be breached because of heavy rainfall. 13 of them are in Uttarakhand. So, rising surface temperature across the globe, including India, have increased the risk of the globes. Studies have shown that around 15 million people face the risk of sudden and deadly flooding from glacial lakes. So, this is important point. 15 million people. Lakes which are expanding and rising in numbers due to global warming. So, what are globes? Globes are disaster events caused by abrupt discharge of water from glacial lakes, large bodies of water that sit in front of, on top of, or beneath of a melting glacier. As a glacier withdraws, it leaves behind a depression that gets filled with melt water, thereby forming a lake. The more the glacier recedes, the bigger and more dangerous the lake becomes. Such lakes are mostly dammed by unstable ice or sediments composed of loose rock and debris. In case the boundary around them breaks, huge amount of water rush down the side of mountains, which could cause flooding in the downstream areas. This is referred to as a GLOF event. So GLOFs can be triggered by various reasons, including glacial calving, where sizable ice chunks detach from the glacier into the lake, including sudden water displacement. Incidents such as avalanches or landslide can also impact the stability of the boundary of around glacial lake, leading to its failure and the rapid discharge of water. Globes can unleash large volume of water sediments and debris downstream with formidable force and velocity. The flood water can submerge valleys, obliterate infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and buildings, and result in significant loss of life and livelihoods. So, why are globes under the spotlight? In recent year, there has been a rise in GLOF events in the Himalayan region as soaring global temperatures have increased glacier melting. Rapid infrastructure development in vulnerable areas has also contributed to the spike in such incidents. Since 1980, in the Himalayan region, particularly in southeastern Tibet and China, Nepal border, globes have become more frequent according to study. Enhanced glacial lake activity threatens numerous communities and infrastructure in the third pole, published in the journal Nature in 2023. The analysis was done by Tangang Zhang, Vishai Wang, Boshai N, and Lili V, all from the Institute of Tibetan Plateau Research in China. So, what is the condition of in Uttarakhand? Let us see. Uttarakhand has witnessed two major GLOF events in the past few years. First took place in June 2013, which affected large part of the state. Kedarnath Valley was the worst hit, where thousands of people died. The second occurred in February 2021, when Chamoli district was hit by flash floods due to the burning of a glacier lake. As mentioned earlier, Uttarakhand has 13 glacial lakes which are prone to GLOF. Based on the analysis of available data and research from various technical institutions, these lakes have been categorized into three risk levels: A, B, and C. Five highly sensitive glacial lakes fall into the A category. These includes Vasundhara Tal in the Dhauli Ganga basin in the Chamoli district and four lakes in Pithoragarh district, Maban Lake in Lasar Yangti Valley, a Pyongru Lake in the Dharma Basin, and unclassified lake in the Dharma Basin, and another unclassified lake in the Kuthi Yangti Valley. So these are the few lakes that has been mentioned here. And so let us see another important article, which is about the path to Viksit Bharat, why India should target per capita and not aggregate GDP. So a graph has been provided in which growth of Indian and Chinese economy since 1990 to 2022 has been traced. So uh, this is about China has grown very fast, and India has not able to catch up that pace. Let us see what are the reasons behind this. So back in 1990s, China's per capita GDP was below India's, and its overall GDP was only 23% higher. That year, China and India were the world's 11th and 12th largest economies by nominal GDP at prevailing dollar converted prices without adjusting for inflation. China's real GDP in constant inflation adjusted dollars grew by an average of around 10% per year in the 90s and 2000s. By 2010, it had become the world's second biggest economy, with a nominal GDP of $6.1 trillion, 15.4 times the 1990 level. India's real GDP grew much slower by 5.8% in the 90s and 6.3% in the 2000s. At the end of 2010, India's nominal GDP was $1.7 trillion, which was 5.2 times its 1990 level. Its world ranking in terms of economic size was number 9. The China decades. The charts show the per capita and overall GDP of the two countries. In 1990, China's economy was just over 1.2 times India's. It became 3.6 times and 5.3 times in 2010 and 2022 respectively. The 90s and 2000s were China's decades. The size of economy in 2010 measured by nominal GDP was larger than that of the US in 1990. Since 2010, China's annual growth has eased to an average of 7% and to 5.3% in the 5 years ended 2022. But the sustained double digit growth of the 90s and 2000s and of 7.7% in the decade that followed led to the China's per capita GDP crossing $10,000 by 2019. In 2022, China's economy size at $18 trillion was more than that of US in 2014. At current growth rates, China could replace the US, which is $5.4 trillion GDP in 2022, as the world's largest economy by the early to mid 2030s. Where India stands, India, on the other hand, has seen its real GDP growth in dollar terms fall to an average of 5.9% during 2010 to 2022 and 5.7% for the 9 years from 2014 when the Narendra Modi government came to power. While India's nominal GDP at $3.4 trillion in 2022 is just short of China's in 2007. So India has been a relative growth underperformer. Even the improvement in its overall GDP ranking from number 10 to number 5 between 2013 and 2022 has come on a back of a not so high average annual growth rate of 5.7%. Japan's and Germany's nominal GDP were $4.3 trillion and $4.1 trillion respectively in 2022. Back of the envelope calculations showed that India needs to grow at only 6% per year in current dollars, and other two economies at 2% for India to become world number 3 by economy by 2028. So per capita in focus must be a focus. Aggregate GDP matters, not least because it adds to the country's geopolitical heft. However, given India's massive population and present levels of development, per capita GDP is at least as important. An annual GDP growth rate of even 5% over 30 years would result in an economy expanding by 332% or 4.32 times. This has to do with what the economist Thomas Piketty calls the law of cumulative growth. Seemingly low growth rates, when sustained over a long time frame, in this case a generation, can bring about considerable progress. India has witnessed such transformation with an average annual real GDP growth of 6% during 1990 to 2022. The scale of the transformation would obviously have been higher with a 7 to 8% growth. The Chinese story is extraordinary for not just the almost 46-fold expansion in its economy between 1990 to 2022 against India's 11-fold, but also because it has been accompanied by an increase in per capita GDP from $348, less than India's $369, to 12,720, far more than India's $2,411. The World Bank's per capita GNI, gross national income threshold for categorizing a country as high income is $13,846, and China isn't far from attaining this status. The Modi government has targeted a Viksit Bharat or developed India by 2047. At current per capita GDP levels, India is a lower middle income, that is 1,136 to $4,465 range country, and China is an upper middle income, which range from 4,466 to $13,845 economy. Since a developed country is one where the average standard living is high, linked to a per capita GDP of $13,846 or more, that's a target worth aiming for. So this is what India needs to do in order to get a really Viksit Bharat or the developed India by 2047. So another important article about the Ring of Fire. So recently Taiwan has witnessed a very grave earthquake, very high intensity earthquake. So let us see what this is about to say. 9 people were killed and more than 900 injured after Taiwan was hit by the world biggest earthquake in at least 25 years on Wednesday morning. Taiwan's earthquake monitoring agency said the magnitude of the quake was 7.2. The US Geological Survey put it at 7.4. The epicenter of the quake was 18 kilometers southwest of Hollin Country in eastern Taiwan. Multiple aftershocks were experienced, one of which was 6.5 magnitude, USGS said. Taiwan lies on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where 90% of the world's earthquake takes place. The island and its surrounding waters have registered about 2000 earthquakes of magnitude 4.0 or greater since 1980, and more than 100 earthquakes of magnitude more than 5.5 according to the USGS. So what is Ring of Fire? The Ring of Fire is essentially a string of hundreds of volcanoes and earthquake sites that run along the fringes of the Pacific Ocean. The horseshoe shaped ring is nearly 40,250 km long and traces the meeting points of many tectonic plates, including the Eurasian, North American, John D. Fuca, Cocos, Caribbean, Nazca, Antarctic, Indian, Australian, Philippine, and other smaller plates that encircle the large Pacific plate. The Ring of Fire runs through Pacific coast countries, including the US, Indonesia, Mexico, Japan, Canada, Guatemala, Russia, Chile, Peru, and the Philippines. So, why is the Ring of Fire vulnerable to earthquakes? The earthquakes are triggered as tectonic plates constantly slide, slide past, collide with, or move above or below each other along the ring. The rough edges of the plates get stuck to each other while the rest of the plates keep moving. An earthquake occurs when the plate has moved far enough and the edges get unstuck along one of the faults. The quakes in Taiwan are due to the interaction of two tectonic plates, the Philippine Sea Plate and the Eurasian Plate. So why are there so many volcanoes in the Pacific Ring of Fire? The volcanoes in the Ring of Fire are also due to the movement of tectonic plates. Many of these volcanoes have formed through a process known as subduction, which takes place along when two plates collide, and the heavier plate is shoved under another another, creating a deep trench. Basically, when a downgoing oceanic plate like the Pacific plate is shoved into a hotter mantle plate, it heats up, volatile elements mix, and this produces the magma. The magma then rises up through the overlying plate and spurts out at the surface, which leads to the formation of volcanoes, according to a report by DW. Most of the subduction zones on the planet are located in the Ring of Fire region. So this was all from today's the explained page. So I didn't find any other important article over the entire newspaper. So this was all from today's newspaper. We'll meet tomorrow again. Till then,